Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification.
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah.
This country is a piece of
White.
folks,
White.
trash,
White supremacy.
white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around? There's a black person right here. Does he not
They gon'
exist?
say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
Just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.
Well, if you just look at the polling today in the 2024 presidential race between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Kamala Harris now has the advantage by pretty much all of the polls. She has had a major polling upsurge in the aftermath of defenestrating her boss, Joe Biden. The last several polls read Harris +3, Harris +3, 1 Trump +5, that would be Rasmussen, Harris +2, Harris +3, Harris +4, Trump +1 from Fox News. There's also a Daily Mail poll that is out that shows Trump +2. Bottom line is this remains a very, very close election. And if you look at the state level polling, what you see is that pretty much all of the major swing states are within margin of error. In the Real Clear Politics polling average as of today, Kamala Harris is ahead in Wisconsin by about a point. Pennsylvania is effectively a dead heat. Michigan, Harris is up about 2.5 points. Arizona, Trump is up a little bit less than a point. And in Georgia, Trump is up a little bit less than a point. So what you have is margin of error across the board. And that's actually bad news for Kamala Harris because she has had the best 3.5 weeks of any candidate in American history. This is an amazing 3 weeks for her. She took her boss. She dumped his body on the side of the road. She took his spot. There have been 0 questions. We are now on. I don't have my calendar with me because we're on the road. Day 26 of being asked 0 questions. Do you know how unbelievable that is? 26 days of being asked 0 questions after the most controversial political move in the history of modern American politics, ousting the sitting nominee, not the prospective nominee, the sitting nominee who had gotten every single primary vote. She had received 0. He was ousted, and she was supplanted for him, and everyone just sort of went about their merry way. And she has proceeded to spell out 0 serious policy proposals and 0 questions for 26 days. 26 days. That is nuts. That's nuts. And yet, she is not soaring to a 10-point lead. There's some polls that have her up maybe as much as 5 points. And listen, that's bad news for Donald Trump because against Joe Biden, he was up 5 points. And what you see is a consistent move in her direction. According to Nate Silver's work over at Substack, and I think Silver is the best poll analyst in the country, there's been a national shift of about 7 points in favor of Harris over where Joe Biden was. When Joe Biden was in the race, Trump had a 4-point advantage. Today, Democrats have about a 3-point advantage nationally. And that is mirrored by about a 7-point shift in Pennsylvania toward the Democrats, a 5-point shift toward the Democrats in Georgia, a 6-point shift toward the Democrats in Wisconsin, a 6-point shift in Michigan, a 6-point shift in North Carolina, an 8-point shift in Arizona, a 6-point shift in Nevada, even a 4-point shift in Florida. So these are big shifts in favor of Kamala Harris, but they're not enough to put her so durably ahead that this election is over. And so this raises the question, will there be a Trump bounce back? Will the sugar high wear off, or will the media be able to pump life into this inflatable doll of a candidate all the way up into the election? Well, Politico has a rundown on some of the numbers, and what it shows is a few reasons for serious concern for the Kamala Harris campaign. The first reason for concern, on June 27th, which was before she had defenestrated her boss, her favorability rating was 39%. Today, according to the Real Clear Politics polling average, she's at 45%, not at 60%, not at 70%, 45%. Now, she's doing better than that in some of the swing states. A New York Times Siena College poll has her about 50% favorable versus 48% favorable. But she has not been grazed. She has not been tarnished in any way. Not a single one of her policies has come under serious scrutiny. Even when she is stealing policies from the Trump campaign, nobody has even dinged her yet. Now, one advantage that she does have over Joe Biden is all the Democrats coming home. The third-party vote share on July 21st was about 12 points. That was going to go for RFK Jr. or Jill Stein or Cornel West. That is now down to about 7 points. And that is because a lot of Democrats are coming home. That's not because a bunch of people shifted into the Trump camp. That's because a bunch of people shifted into the Kamala Harris camp. Again, that 5-point decrease in third-party share probably has redounded almost solely to the benefit of the Democratic Party. Double haters are now coming back, and they're going to Kamala Harris. Because before, the double haters were going to like RFK, and they were just waiting for somebody to not be either Donald Trump or Joe Biden. So that's a good news piece for Kamala Harris. The double haters, the people who don't like either Biden or Trump, they are now moving into the Kamala department, which is good news for her. But you know what's bad news? It's very tough to prioritize your health, especially if you're not sure where to start. So that's why I'm excited to introduce Lumen. Lumen is this really cool handheld device. It is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. It's really cool. I have one of them. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning to know what's going on with your metabolism. This means you'll know whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Forget the one-size-fits-all diet fads. What sets Lumen apart is the ability to understand you on a personal one-to-one level. With this crazy news cycle and all the travel I've been doing recently, the device is a lifesaver. It takes my unique metabolic data and crafts a personalized nutrition plan for every day tailored to my body's needs and goals. With Lumen, you're not just getting a device, you're getting a health companion. You breathe into it before and after a workout or meal and gain real-time insights into your body's metabolic response. Lumen will provide you with actionable tips to help you stay on top of your health. If you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Shapiro to get 15% off Lumen. That is lumen.me. Use Shapiro for 15% off your purchase today. It's a very cool thing. It'll make your health better. Lumen.me. Use Shapiro for 15% off your purchase. Another piece of good news for Kamala Harris is that voter enthusiasm has ticked back up for Democrats. While Joe Biden was the candidate, voter enthusiasm among Democrats was really low. Only 46% of Democrats were enthusiastic about the rematch between Biden and Trump. Now it's about 62%, according to that New York Times Siena College poll. She has also closed the gap on the economy a little bit. In June, Trump was favored on the economy by almost 10 points. Today, Trump is favored on the economy by about 3 points. In the Rust Belt states, again, he has an advantage, but it is not a massive advantage. But here is the big stat for Kamala Harris. On June 27th, 25% of Americans thought America was moving in the right direction. Today, 25% of Americans think America is moving in the right direction. That is the number that really should be dispositive for the election. If you think the country is moving in the wrong direction, presumably you don't like the leadership class, which means that Kamala Harris she must maintain the lie that she is a change in direction. She cannot say, don't change horses in the middle of the stream, because everybody wants to change horses in the middle of this particular stream. She must distance herself from Joe Biden, because if only a quarter of Americans like the direction America is going, and if she's stapled to Joe Biden, well, then she's the one who is not a change in direction. And that's precisely what she's hoping to do. She's making 2 strategic moves right now. Strategic move number 1 is to hide, and strategic move number 2 is to distance herself from Joe Biden as fast as humanly possible. On the hiding point, it is perfectly obvious at this point that they have no plans to allow this woman to talk at any point unscripted. They are not going to allow her to do it. The debate is going to be the height of it, and she is going to be protected by her Praetorian guards over at ABC News. It's the reason why she won't commit to 3 debates. Why should we only get 1 debate? She's a brand new candidate. It's not as though we've seen her debate Donald Trump ever before. We haven't even seen her as a fully nominated presidential candidate before. And by what she says, she's a completely different person and a different candidate from the first time she ran in 2019, 2020. So shouldn't we get 3 debates? Why 1? And the answer is because she's a coward, because she's running screaming from anything that looks like a question. Again, 26 days. And folks, it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. We're going to be back here at this point next week. And it's going to be 33 days that she has not answered a single question. Because we're going to hit the Democratic National Convention on Monday. Then we're going to get all the way up through August 22nd. And she still will have answered 0 questions. Then we'll get all the way through the weekend. And she won't have been asked any questions or answered any serious questions. We're going to go more than a month where a presidential candidate who's brand spanking new, a presidential candidate who made, again, the most controversial political move in modern American history by taking her own candidate and throwing him off the back of a train. And she's been asked 0 questions for a month. So the good news for Kamala Harris is that this has helped her a lot. And now she's leading the polls. The bad news is that can't last forever. She has to come back to earth. The reality is it is still only August 15th. That means that we still have 3 months until this election. She has not been dinged. She has not been scuffed. She has not been bruised. Nothing has happened to her yet. And she's still not trashing Donald Trump in the polls, which is not amazing news for her. So again, strategy number one, hide as fast as possible and as often as possible. Harris campaign spokesman Michael Tyler is saying that. He was asked on CNN, is she going to do a press conference, like at any point here, answer some questions? He starts laughing. He's like, of course not. Why would we do that?
I don't want to, belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal. We are running a campaign that is built to communicate with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. We are confident in the plan that we have in place, and we're going to execute on that plan.
Okay, what he means by we are confident in the plan is that we are not going to answer any questions from you. None. She will not be out in public answering questions. Hide her, stow her, make sure she never says anything. Because here's the dirty secret. Kamala Harris is not particularly smart. That is the big secret here. The big secret here is the minute you get her off the teleprompter, she is a mess of a human being. She's like every other actor in Hollywood. Great when the camera is on and the lines are being provided. And the minute it's improv time, you are in serious, serious trouble with Kamala Harris. And they know it, which is why they're preventing her from ever seeing the light of day, absent a script in front of her. In fact, Harris campaign spokesperson Michael Tyler, same interview, he says he thinks it's funny to steal the no tax on tips policy. He's asked about, what are her policies? He's like, we have brand new policies like no tax on tips. And sure, we're stealing it, but what you going to do about it?
Kamala Harris is saying she will fight to end taxes on tips for service and hospitality workers. Trump says that she stole his idea. What do you say to that?
Yeah, listen, again, I would say that there's only one candidate in this race that actually has a track record of standing up and working for working people, and that's Kamala Harris.
Okay, that's not even an answer. That's not even an answer. But here's the thing. The Harris campaign is confident that they have the love, adoration, and sycophancy of the media. And so they're not particularly worried about the media putting serious pressure on them. So again, strategy number one, hide her, stow her, prevent her from ever seeing the light of day. Strategy number two, take the old man and take his corpse and riddle it with holes. That's what they're going to do with Joe Biden now. Because again, if she is linked with his very unpopular policies, if 25% of Americans like the direction of the country right now, she must draw distance between herself and the administration that made her vice president. I mean, which I got to say is incredibly scummy. I mean, truly scummy. She was a politician who was on the trash heap of history. She ran in 2019 by calling Joe Biden a racist and and then she earned 0 primary votes and dropped out and was widely perceived as one of the worst candidates in modern presidential history. And Joe Biden, for DEI reasons, picked her up off that ash heap and he made her vice president of the United States. And her first move in gratitude is to steal his nomination and then to trash him. What a delightful person she is. Can you feel the joy? Do you see the joy? She's just so joyous. She's just filled with joy, so much joy. But I'll tell you what will bring you joy. Meat. Good Ranchers is extending their offer for new subscribers. Get a free gold medal add-on for the next 4 years. So you can enjoy plain chicken breast, Angus ground beef, Applewood bacon, wild-caught salmon in every order for the next 4 years. Plus, with my exclusive code Shapiro, you get an additional $25 off your first box. That's up to $1,200 in savings when you subscribe. Good Ranchers is not only an amazing partner on this show, they're also huge supporters of the paralyzed veterans of America. Every order supports American farms and American veterans. If you're a proud American, Good Ranchers is for you. Root for Team USA this summer while enjoying America's best meat that is born and raised right here on local farms and ranches. Remember, use my code Shapiro, claim $25 off your first box, free express shipping, and your free add-on for 4 years. Don't miss the summer special. Go to goodranchers.com. Use promo code Shapiro, goodranchers.com. American meat delivered. There is no better present for you, your family, or yourself than Good Ranchers meat. They made me a kosher steak one time. I got to tell you, it was delicious. Goodranchers.com. Use promo code Shapiro to get started and claim $25 off your first box, free express shipping, and your free add-on for 4 years. So, Axios has a full report about this. Vice President Kamala Harris, hoping to distance herself from President Biden's unpopularity on the economy, plans a new focus on middle-class worries and woes. Beginning in North Carolina later this week with her first policy speech, continuing next week with the Democratic Convention in Chicago, Harris will tell Americans who she is and how she'd govern. who she is? She's the vice president of the United States. How she would govern, we know. She's been in government for the better part of my life at this point. Harris won't say it bluntly in public, but her advisors do so privately. She wants to break with Biden on issues on which he's unpopular. That would be like all the issues. There are 0 issues on which Joe Biden is popular. First up, rising prices. This is part of a highly choreographed effort to define herself, in some cases, redefine herself as a different kind of Democrat. Okay, now here is the problem, of course. She is not a different kind of Democrat. She is a machine politician. She was picked because she is generic D. That is what she is. She's a generic Democrat who has a diverse face. She's a woman, she's black, and she's totally generic. Any Democrat would be mirroring the policies of Joe Biden. That's the dirty secret about the Biden administration. It's not an administration, it's an entire machine. And that machine just took the unpopular face, destroyed it, and put in place a new, friendlier, more joy-filled face. That's all that happened here. So they have to distance her from Joe Biden. Very, very important that they distance her from Joe Biden because, again, most people don't actually like Joe Biden's economic policies. The media are doing their best, by the way, to spin Joe Biden's economic policies into something that are actually useful or good. According to the New York Times, inflation has now cooled to 2.9%, shoring up the case for a Fed rate cut. The consumer price index reading in July was the mildest year-over-year increase since 2021. Now, there's only one problem with that particular headline, which is that the 2% increase that is sought by the Federal Reserve is 2, not 2.9, which means we are still clocking in 50% above what exactly the inflation rate is supposed to be year on year. It doesn't matter. They're going to try and shove a Fed rate cut through as fast as humanly possible because they're hoping that that will inflate the economy back into some semblance of serious job growth before the election. And the notion of Federal Reserve independence is complete hogwash. It's been hogwash for years. And the Federal Reserve was not independent under Richard Nixon. The Federal Reserve was not independent under FDR. It was not independent under LBJ. It is not independent under Joe Biden. It is not. The idea that politics comes into their considerations not at all is ridiculous. In any case, the consumer price index cooling in July is now being used as an excuse to declare victory by Team Biden. Here is Joe Biden, who, again, it is kind of incredible that he's dead and he's doing more press conferences than the very much alive presidential nominee of the Democratic Party, his vice president. Here is Joe Biden getting a little bit miffed at the reporters and saying, they need to report the economy, but everything's, oh, and then he fell asleep.
Has the U.S. beat inflation, Mr. President?
Yes. I told you we're going to have a soft landing. We're going to have a soft landing. My policies are working. Start writing that way, okay?
My policies are working, and now I'm going to dictate. You stenographers, why don't you just write what I want you to write? Just write how much better things are. And naturally, that's precisely what the media write. They take dictation. Inflation cools to 2.9%, shoring up a case for a Fed rate cut, says the New York Times. Axios is reporting the absolute magic of Joe Biden's economic policies. They've magically shrunk inflation. I mean, sure, it's still 20% in the aggregate since Joe Biden took office, but it's been awesome, guys. It's just been great. Now, again, this is actually a problem for the Democrats because it turns out most people actually don't like Joe Biden's economic policies. I mean, the White House's economic advisor, Jared Bernstein, he was trying to suggest that everybody should cover the massively decreased price of gas. There's only one problem. It's still way more expensive than it was when Joe Biden took office.
There was another study that I found looked to me that was pretty rigorous, that suggested that the media tends to write about the gas price when it goes north of $3.50 and not when it goes south of $3.50. So the gas price, as I looked this morning, was, I think, $3.45. And if you haven't written about it, maybe you want to.
Again, the fact that he is trying to dictate to the media exactly what they should cover is absolutely nuts. We should also point out that in January of 2021, the average gallon of gas in the United States cost $2.42. So up a lot. And he's talking about how wonderful this is. Well, Kamala Harris knows that it's not that wonderful. And most Americans don't actually like how the economy is shaping up right now. So what is she doing? She is seeking to differentiate herself from Joe Biden. According to the Wall Street Journal, Democratic nominee seeks to differentiate herself from Biden, even as she amplifies many of his policy proposals. Well, at least they're telling the truth there. She's stealing Joe Biden's policies when she's not stealing Donald Trump's policies, and then she's pretending that she is distancing herself from Joe Biden. According to the Wall Street Journal, shortly after President Biden announced his decision to drop out of the race, an informal group of economic advisors began quietly discussing how to best articulate Vice President Kamala Harris's economic vision. Their challenge, differentiating the candidate from her unpopular boss without abandoning his policies. Well, yes, indeed, that is quite a challenge. Don't overstate the case there, Wall Street Journal. I mean, let me just read that again. Her job is to differentiate the candidate from her unpopular boss without abandoning his policies. That's it. Like, what? So, just to get this absolutely straight, you fire the guy at the top. You hire the second in command. The second in command endorses the entire slate of policies of the guy at the top, but don't worry, it's completely different this time. That's the plan. Harris's team is now crafting a policy framework focused on making housing more affordable, lowering costs for families, taking on corporate excess, and boosting small businesses, according to people involved in the discussion. Well, I mean, if that's not specific enough for you, I don't know what will be. You mean she wants to make housing more affordable? Wow. I mean, listen to that policy expertise. The woman's basically Hayek over here. Incredible. This is von Mises level stuff. Lowering costs for families? Whoa. The specificity, the magic of that's a policy now? My goodness. You mean her policy is to do good things and not do bad things? Whoa. That is a change in direction, let me tell you. The plan is intended to make her priorities clearer to voters. Amid criticism, she hasn't presented a detailed agenda during her first few weeks on the campaign trail, according to the Wall Street Journal. But aides said the exact contours of the plan are still in flux. Days after Harris told reporters she plans to release a policy platform this week, a time frame that surprised some of her advisors. Harris is expected to test drive her messaging during a Friday speech in Raleigh, North Carolina. So what exactly is she going to say in Raleigh, North Carolina? Well, apparently she's going to say the reason that inflation has happened is because everyone in corporate America is greedy, don't you know? Now, you may have heard that before. You may have heard that 1,000 times before because Joe Biden has been dropping that load of crap all over the media landscape for the last 3.5 years as inflation peaked. He kept saying over and over, look, oh, the corporate bosses, they're charging you, and then they take advantage of you. They're charging too much junk fees. Oh, look at how at Walmart, they're greedy. They're greedy. He has yet to explain why it is that apparently they were not greedy during the Trump administration, but magically became greedy when he became president. Maybe the signal factor in pricing has nothing to do with the personal emotional status of the CEOs of Walmart. Maybe it has something to do with the fiscal and monetary policy pursued by the central government of the United States. Maybe it would be that. So the federal government has run the economy basically into a ditch. That might lose you some sleep, but you don't have to because you have a Helix sleep mattress. Listen, my days are incredibly full between the show, being a dad, lots of other stuff going on. I can't keep up with my day if I don't actually get a good night's sleep, and that is why I rely upon and appreciate my Helix mattress. Helix harnesses years of mattress expertise to offer a truly elevated sleep experience. That Helix Elite collection includes 6 different mattress models, each tailored for specific sleep positions and firmness preferences. If you're nervous about buying a mattress online, you don't have to be. Helix has a sleep quiz. It matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress because why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? I took that Helix quiz. I was matched with a firm but breathable mattress. I love it. My wife loves it. We are big Helix fans at the Shapiro house. Helix has a 10-year warranty. You get to try it out for 100 nights risk-free. They'll even pick it up for you if you don't love it, but you will. Helix's financing options, flexible payment plans make it so a great night's sleep is never far away. For a limited time, Helix is offering up to 20% off all mattress orders plus 2 free pillows for our listeners. Just go to helixsleep.com/Ben. That's helixsleep.com/Ben. It's their best offer yet. It won't last long. With Helix, better sleep starts right now. People who fall for this junk, I got to tell you, you're a moron if you fall for this. If you fall for the idea that the reason prices are going up is because people got greedier in the last 3 years, not because Joe Biden and team completely blew out the spending because the interest rates were way too low for too long. If you think it's not that, you think that it's just Bob down at the local hardware store has been jacking up the price of hammers. I don't think you know how basic economics works. The very foolish notion that greed dictates prices suggests there is no one on the other side of the table. Okay, listen, you know what? As a person who likes to make money, I will sell you this pen for $1 million. For $1 million. Any takers? I'm greedy. I'm going to sell this pen for $1 million to you right now. Now, can I actually sell the pen for $1 million? No matter how greedy I am? The answer is no, because you can buy 1 million pens like this for $1 million. Because the pricing mechanism is not dependent on the subjective feelings of the seller. It is dependent on the subjective feelings generally of the purchaser. You don't think it's worth $1 million. You ain't going to spend $1 million on this stupid pen. This is the biggest load of horse crap. They've been dumping it is astonishing to me how economically illiterate Americans are, apparently. So now Vice President Harris is going to call for price controls. Yes, that's worked everywhere it's been tried, including in Soviet Russia. Price controls. She knows what the best price for all goods and services are. She knows what those prices look like. She knows because in that little pea brain of hers, she has calculated out the subjective desires of 340 million Americans and gauged those against the amount of money they have in their pockets. And so she knows precisely what prices should be. Not the market mechanism, not the aggregated desires that are the pricing mechanism in a free market economy. No, it's just her. Because in that tiny pea brain, the workings are so complex. The workings are so unbelievably nuanced that she knows the price of all the goods and services, which is why she can impose price controls, thus fixing the inflationary economy. Quote, this is Politico. Vice President Kamala Harris on Friday will call on Congress to pass a federal ban on price gouging as part of her economic platform to lower grocery prices and everyday costs. That action, to be announced during a speech in North Carolina, is among others she will take in her first 100 days in office to lower high grocery costs, according to a campaign official. Do you understand this economic policy is the same thing as Michael Scott declaring bankruptcy in the office? She's literally saying that she is going to go into Congress and shout, no high prices. And then they'll pass a law that says no high prices. And then there will be no high prices. That's not how the world works. That's not how it works. You can't declare bankruptcy by shouting that you've declared bankruptcy, and you can't lower high prices by passing a law saying no high prices. It's like in the 1920s when the world passed an international law banning all war. And then a decade later was the bloodiest war in the history of the earth. You can't just ban reality by passing a law. Oh, God, this kind of stupidity. It's unreal. Elevated everyday costs have plagued the Biden-Harris administration since Americans' grocery bills spiked during the pandemic. I love the writing here. They've plagued the Biden-Harris administration, not Americans. And the Biden-Harris administration, they're basically sitting there. They were innocent bystanders in all this inflation stuff. Unlike they were in charge of the economy. Harris is hoping to capitalize on new data this week that showed slowing food inflation. Her plans to bring down grocery prices are a key part of broader plans to lower costs for Americans. She'll announce on Friday. No, it's not. That is not going to work. That is not going to work. So what are they actually going to do? They're going to rely on the Federal Reserve to cut rates in September and hopefully jack up the amount of spending in the economy just in advance of the... Who could have predicted such a thing? Who could have predicted that, 2 months before the election, month and a half before the election, the Federal Reserve would inject a bunch of money into the economy just in time for the reelect? Who could have predicted such a thing except for everyone who has a shred of insight into how politics and the Federal Reserve cross paths? Core inflation is still 3.2%, which is 1.2% higher than 2%, which is to say more than 50% higher than it's supposed to be. And they're like, oh, no, time to cut the rates. Time to cut the rates. Now's the moment. It's absolutely amazing. Donald Trump was out on the campaign trail. He's going after Kamala Harris on the economy. He says that she is actually waiting for him to announce his economic plans so she can copy them, which is a good line and true.
Kamala Harris won't end the economic crisis. She will only make it worse. And why hasn't she done it? She talks about it. She's doing a plan. She's going to announce it this week, maybe. She's waiting for me to announce it so she can copy it.
It's true. It's true. By the way, her other big policy prescriptions, when she's not out there saying that we should pass a law to say high prices are bad, her other big policy prescriptions are basically universal basic income, as the Wall Street Journal points out. Universal basic income is this foolish idea that if you give everybody a check in the mail, that this will magically heal poverty, as opposed to just inflating the prices, which is actually what that does. When you helicopter money, which is what the Federal Reserve tried to do for years, what you end up doing is increasing the prices because the market adjusts to the amount of money flowing through the economy. These are brilliant economic plans. I mean, so brilliant. In fact, if you had somebody who's making economic plans like this for you at your company, you would fire them and go to Ziprecruiter. Here at Daily Wire, we've hired a lot of highly skilled people to be part of this growing creative powerhouse, editors, attorneys, engineers, you name it. Like intern Sarah. Sarah started with us this summer. She made a huge impact on the team, from helping with all areas of production to helping my team research some of our biggest guests. Thanks to Sarah, we've been able to continue creating thousands of leftist ears every single day. Well, that's a lot of feelings for an ad, but the facts are, if you're looking for amazing hires like intern Sarah and our entire Daily Wire team, you need to go to Ziprecruiter, where its smart technology excels at finding top talent for all your roles fast. Ziprecruiter makes hiring faster and easier. 4 out of 5 employers who post on Ziprecruiter get a quality candidate within day one. And today, you can try it for free at this exclusive web address, ziprecruiter.com/dailywire. Once again, that's ziprecruiter.com/dailywire. Literally no business can afford to not use Ziprecruiter. It just makes your hiring that much easier. You can get better employees, and that's what you're looking for. ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire to try it out for free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/dailywire. In any case, Kamala Harris has endorsed a slate of policies that look like universal basic income. Despite the fact universal basic income historically means less work for people because they stay home more, because they have more money for not working. According to Matt Weidinger writing for the Wall Street Journal, Kamala Harris will pay you not to work. As vice president, Ms. Harris cast the deciding vote to create a temporary UBI for parents through a significantly expanded child tax credit in 2021. Tens of millions of households collected these payments, which grew to as much as $3,600 a child, even as the program's work requirement and work incentive features were suspended. A University of Chicago study calculated if the change were made permanent, it would result in 1.5 million parents exiting the labor force. As a senator, Harris proposed two even larger UBI programs that would have displaced even more work. In 2019, she introduced her signature bill, proposing a UBI for lower-income adults, including childless adults. According to a Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta report, high effective marginal tax rates on modest income work already effectively lock low-income workers into poverty. The phase-out of Harris's new $3 trillion entitlement would only increase current disincentives to work and advance. Okay, so in other words, everything she does would enhance inflation. Price controls, by the way, actually lead to shortages and scarcities. That's what they do. So they lead to black markets in which the prices are even higher than normal, which is what actually happened in the Soviet Union when they tried price controls. Price controls fail wherever they are tried. So this is an insuperable problem for Kamala Harris. Pretending that this problem doesn't exist isn't going to make her president. The economy is not where she needs it to be. The Federal Reserve rate cut probably ain't going to do the work she needs it to do in time for the election. Her policies are the same as her boss's, and so her attempts to distance herself from her boss on the economy, that is not going to work very well. And this leads to two major problems that are going to come up for her next week at the Democratic National Convention. Now, the pre-celebration has begun for the DNC. It's the inauguration of a brand new, shiny, diverse face. Ooh, wow, historic. I love that we're still doing this historic routine. It's ridiculous at this point. I got to tell you. Yeah, America is a place where anyone can succeed, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation. Like this is a place where you can pretty much do what you want or be who you are in virtually any way that is not massively behavioral, and you can succeed in America. Can we dispense with this first blank president nonsense? Seriously, enough of this. It's stupid. It's really dumb. I understand we did it when Barack Obama became president of the United States. First black president, biggest conflict in American history is over race. Can we really quit it with the nonsense that it makes a difference whether Kamala Harris is a woman or not? Like what? In any case, the media won't. Next week it will be, oh my God, we have a chance. We finally have a chance to overcome the barriers of the past when women were discriminated against by electing the first woman to the presidency. I hate to break it to you. The vast majority of women, people in college are women. Women constitute a majority of the voting. Women constitute a majority of degrees in a wide variety of areas. Women have it pretty good in the United States. The whole point of a first blank president is that some giant barrier has been overcome. What barrier has Kamala Harris had to overcome in her life? Seriously, what is the big barrier that Kamala Harris has had to overcome? That she put her mind to it. She buckled down, and with grit and determination, she overcame that barrier to public office presented by not sleeping with Willie Brown. And so she slept with Willie Brown. What are we even talking about here? It's ridiculous. Anyway, that will be the story next week. The story next week will be history, so much history. Okay, but there are two big problems that are coming for her at the convention. One of them is Joe Biden, and two is that half of her base likes Hamas. These are two major problems for her that are about to appear on the horizon at the Democratic National Convention. We'll get to that in just 1 second. First, today is the day. Pre-sale tickets are available right now at miracist.com. This is super important. Okay, now, I know most of us, when we go to the movies, you kind of buy the ticket day of, right? Like an hour before. But if you actually want good movies like Am I Racist in the theater near you, you need to pre-buy your ticket right now. It's not just about watching an awesome movie. It's about sending a message. Our very own Matt Walsh, who has absolutely destroyed the left's gender ideology in What is a Woman, went undercover as a DEI expert. And let me tell you, what he uncovered is so absurd, so intellectually bankrupt, you'll be laughing and furious at the same exact time. Listen, we do need your help. The more pre-sale tickets we sell, the more theaters will actually show this. Your ticket purchase is a direct blow against the left-wing narrative. Am I Racist hits theaters September 13th. But don't wait. Do not hesitate. Go to miracist.com right now. Buy those tickets. Make it like a family event. Make it a community event. Let's show the cultural elite that conservatives can dominate at the box office. This is how we win the culture war, one movie at a time. So as we're talking about, the convention is next week, the DNC, and they've got two huge problems at the convention. Problem number one is Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a problem because he's still lingering around the edges. He's still hanging around, whining about the fact that he was forced to drop out of the race by his own insiders, that he was stabbed in the back by Brutus and company. The New York Times has a piece where he's complaining about this. So you're going to get this kind of whining all the way up until the election. In the end, he was alone. Confined to a spare bedroom in his vacation home, fighting off bouts of coughing from COVID, President Biden was exhausted when he turned in for the night on Saturday, July 20th. Whether he slept soundly or fitfully or not at all, people close to him said he took the long hours by himself to mull over the historic decision he was about to make. He had just been through a brutal 2 days in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, as he huddled with his wife, Joe Biden, and his closest aides, who rotated from a screened-in porch to a sitting area off the dining room. Steve Ricchetti, the president's eyes and ears on Capitol Hill, and Mike Donilon, his chief strategist, had shared internal polling with the president that Saturday that mirrored what Americans had been seeing for weeks. Mr. Biden was falling behind nationally and in key battleground states. There was still a path to victory, they advised him, but the fight would be ugly. The president would be pitted against his donors, half his party in Congress, and Democratic voters who had concluded he was too old to win. By that Saturday evening, something had shifted. It was not just about the polls, people close to Biden say. Despite everything, Biden believed he could still claim the Democratic nomination and beat former President Donald Trump. Aides say he still believes that. What began to change the president's mind, people familiar with his thinking say, was the realization that if he stayed in the race, he was in for a lonely battle that would rip apart the Democratic Party, the cause he had served nearly his entire life. Now, first of all, we should point out, you shouldn't serve a party your entire life. You should not. That is pretty ugly stuff. In fact, you should serve an idea. You should serve the American people. You shouldn't serve a party. If your cause is the party, kind of reeks of socialist, communist Russia. That's what that reeks of. Would a man who views himself as the ultimate consensus builder in Washington want to wage an intra-party war that would run counter to the fabric of who he is? That day, Biden asked a key question. If we were going to do it, Biden asked his two advisors, what would we say? And they drafted the statement, and then they went out and basically tweeted it out there while he was asleep or something. Okay, so one problem for Kamala Harris is that Joe Biden is still around, and he's still presidenting despite the fact that he is now a zombie candidate. He is still a zombie president, and he's still kind of a zombie candidate because he's out there, and his policies are the ones she is running on. And he has an interest in not allowing Kamala Harris to throw him under the bus. So as you said earlier, he's very unpopular. His policies are very unpopular, which means Kamala Harris has to do two things: run and hide from the press and dissociate from Biden. But if you're Biden, you don't want Harris dissociating from you. What you want is for Harris to win off your back. What you want is for Harris to win, but you want to be seen as the reason she won, not the reason she lost. You want to be seen as the person who stepped aside and then handed her the keys to the kingdom, and it was your generosity and the magic of your successful policies that allowed for the first black woman president. That's what you want if you are Joe Biden. So, yesterday at the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about the fact that Kamala Harris is pretty obviously telegraphing she wants to distance herself from Biden, and Karine Jean-Pierre, speaking on behalf of Joe Biden, was like, nope. You get right back here right now. We are stapling you to his pant leg.
Axios is now reporting that she is hoping to distance herself from President Biden's unpopularity on the economy. Can you blame her?
Do you know this is the Biden-Harris administration? Are you aware that this is the Biden-Harris administration? And she is indeed the vice president.
But if the president's policies on the economy were working, or if they were popular, wouldn't he still be the candidate?
You literally just had the chair of the CEA here who laid out a pretty robust point by point about the economy and what has happened under the Biden-Harris administration. And I thought it was pretty convincing.
Biden-Harris, Biden-Harris, Biden-Harris. So Biden is now effectively cutting commercials on behalf of Donald Trump because Joe Biden is unpopular, but he can't admit that he's unpopular. And so he is still going to insist that Harris is his candidate. That's the idea. And he's particularly going to do that because he understands the rest of the Democratic Party wishes to cut him off from the party and shove him out to sea. According to Politico, Joe Biden is frustrated that Barack Obama wouldn't tell him to his face he should leave the race, which, by the way, is the most Obama thing ever. Obama deployed all of his forces to oust Joe Biden from the race, but he's too much of a coward to ever just confront Joe Biden and take the lead. Always leading from behind, that Barack Obama. He's angry with Nancy Pelosi and views her as ruthless for ushering him out the door. He's miffed at the role Chuck Schumer played too, according to Politico. Biden has told his closest aides and associates he's coming to terms with his decision to bow out, but still harbors some frustration toward the members of his own party he believes pushed him out, according to three people familiar with Biden's thinking. So this thing is just going to percolate, and it's just going to sit there in the middle of the room at the DNC, and it's going to be kind of awkward. So the media are trying to help Kamala Harris out by actively shooting holes in Joe Biden. That's what they're going to do now. So now, finally, after years of not reporting on Hunter Biden, they're going to report on Hunter Biden because now it's time. You couldn't do it before the 2020 election because then Joe Biden might lose. And you couldn't do it for the first 3 years of the administration because then Joe Biden might lose. But now that he's not the candidate and they need to get him away from Kamala Harris as fast as possible, get the stank of defeat away from Kamala Harris, now they're perfectly willing to open up their guns on Hunter Biden. According to the New York Times, Hunter Biden sought assistance from the U.S. government for a potentially lucrative energy project in Italy while his father was vice president, according to newly released records and interviews. The records, which the Biden administration had withheld for years, indicate Hunter Biden wrote at least one letter to the U.S. ambassador to Italy in 2016 seeking assistance for Burisma, where he was a board member. Embassy officials appear to have been uneasy with the request from the son of a sitting vice president on behalf of a foreign company. I want to be careful about promising too much, wrote a Commerce Department official based at the U.S. Embassy in Rome. This is a Ukrainian company. Purely to protect ourselves, the U.S. government should not be actively advocating with the government of Italy without the company going through the DOC Advocacy Center, the official wrote. Abby Lowell, a lawyer for Biden, said his client, quote, asked various people, including the U.S. ambassador to Italy at the time, whether they could arrange an introduction between Burisma and the president of the Tuscany region of Italy, where Burisma was pursuing a geothermal project. A White House spokesman said the president was unaware when he was vice president. Why are we seeing this reporting now? This happened all the way back when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States in 2016. It is now, I checked the calendar, the year 2024. Why are we only seeing this now? And the answer is because the media are finally beginning to open up on Hunter. Why? As a way to get Joe. Why? Because they need Joe shuttled off to the side. They need something that implicates Joe but does not implicate Kamala. So it can't be policy. It can't be the failures of the administration. So now you're going to see, over the next few weeks, stories about Joe Biden, corruption in the Biden family, more reasons why Joe Biden couldn't be the presidential nominee and why Kamala Harris is so wildly different from Joe Biden. Here, for example, is a CNN reporter saying, well, this doesn't look great.
Does this play? What does Harris do about this? Anything?
I mean, it's not Kamala Harris's son, and so there's a little bit more distance than when it was the presidential nominee's son. This isn't great. Hunter Biden, everybody in the White House has known for a long time as an issue. The way that that his lawyers responded to this disclosure, to say like, well, yeah, he sent letters but did nothing wrong. It doesn't. This feels very strange to people that the vice president's son was sending letters or making requests to other government officials.
Well, I mean, that's weird that all of a sudden now you're covering Hunter Biden. Weird, because you guys covered it up for like years. But now you're covering it. That's strange. Almost as though you're doing the bidding of the Kamala Harris campaign. Okay, so that is going to be a problem for Kamala Harris. She must separate off from Joe Biden, but Joe Biden doesn't want to separate off from her. So that will be an ongoing problem all the way up till the election. And every campaign ad that the Trump campaign cuts needs to have the picture of the two of them holding their hands in triumph just about a month ago at the White House. That's what they need, because Kamala is Joe Biden's heir in every apparent way. Okay, that is problem number one at the convention. Problem number two, of course, is these mass protests that are now planned at the convention. You're about to see a bunch of people who love Hamas and hate America protesting outside the DNC. And inside the hall, you will see warmth toward a lot of those positions and people from the actual DNC. So, for example, last night, private event between Kamala Harris campaign officials and pro-Hamas protesters storm the event and start setting off smoke bombs. Wokes for slaughtering Jews over there. That's a solid contingent of the Democratic Party. And it's going to get way worse, because what we know is that there are major non-governmental organizations who hate Israel and hate Jews who are going to be sponsoring massive marches on the DNC throughout the convention. Many of those groups actually have connections with terrorism. For example, Samidun is one of these groups. Samidun regularly advocates for armed resistance and celebrates terrorist organizations. Students for Justice in Palestine, which advocates for quote-unquote armed intifada and is constantly pushing for armed confrontation with the oppressors, been banned on multiple college campuses. They're going to show up. Jewish Voices for Peace, which is neither Jewish nor a voice for peace. They're going to show up as well. Code Pink, just the nuts who have been spending every waking moment since the Iraq War complaining that America is a military industrial power that must be defeated in every foreign conflict. There's a wide variety of some of the worst people you know who are going to show up at this convention. And meanwhile, inside the convention hall, half the Democratic Party agrees with those people. For example, Pramila Jayapal, the radical congressperson from Washington State, who refuses to say that Hamas is responsible for the conflict in the Middle East.
At this point, who do you believe is responsible for the ongoing conflict, Israel or Hamas?
I think we need peace in the region, and that's what I'm going to continue to work for, is peace for Israelis and Palestinians.
So that is a not Hamas answer. So she refused to say Hamas is responsible. You know, the terrorist group currently holding 5 Americans hostage, as well as babies. She won't say that. She is a respected member of the Progressive Congressional Caucus. Meanwhile, Ilhan Omar recently won her primary, and she won her primary because her area is filled with people who hate America and hate Israel. I mean, it really is that simple. She has a lot of constituents who are not pro-America and who are not pro-Israel, so they elected a person who hates America and hates Israel and doesn't like the Jews very much either. So at her victory party, she was out there suggesting that her opponent, who is a liberal black person, is actually siding with Nazis. By Nazis, she means Jews, of course.
This campaign has been one of the ugliest, most disgusting campaign against me that I have ever witnessed. We had an opponent that was willing to align with literal Nazis in order to defeat us.
I mean, these are the people the Democratic Party has decided to let in. By the way, in the most ironic take of the day, Chuck Schumer has a new book coming out. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Majority Leader, who has been complicit in the rise of anti-Semites inside his own caucus, people like Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. Chuck Schumer, who presided over the egregiously pro-Iranian nuclear deal. Chuck Schumer has been a disaster area on behalf of Jews across the country. He's now writing a book on anti-Semitism, which is the moral equivalent of O.J. Simpson's If I Did It. Chuck Schumer is responsible for as much anti-Semitism in the country on the left as anybody in American politics. In any case, this is a major ongoing problem. It turns out people don't like burning American flags as the party candidate. They don't like that. The rioters that you're about to see outside the Democratic National Convention are mirrored, of course, by the rioters that Kamala Harris tried to bail out in 2020 at the BLM riots, and that Tim Walz made provision for in Minneapolis during the BLM riots. Right? Those people will be out en masse. So her solution and the solution of the Biden campaign, they are desperately attempting to tamp down conflict in the Middle East, even if it means selling out Israel, actually particularly if it means selling out Israel in advance of the Democratic National Convention. It is not going to work. So in a radical attempt to tamp down conflict in the Middle East, on behalf of Iran, really, and on behalf of Hamas, the administration is taking a number of steps because what they're trying to do is lock this thing down before the DNC. That's the whole goal. And they don't care about the actual implications for American policy in the region. They're perfectly willing to bribe, cajole, do whatever they can to the Iranian leaders in order to tamp down the conflict, not because that is the best policy for America. The best policy for America is for America and her allies to take a strong anti-Iran position that boxes Iran in and prevents it from spreading its terror tentacles all around the region, thus threatening vital American resources ranging from Saudi oil to Israeli democracy. Right? These are all things that America cares about just generally in the region, and the Biden administration is willing to sacrifice them all on the altar of the pro-Hamas protesters at the DNC. So what are they doing right now? So there's supposed to be a big summit in Qatar to talk about the possibility of a ceasefire. Now, there's only one party that is full-on rejecting a ceasefire at this point. It happens to be the terrorist group. Hamas is not even attending these ceasefire talks. They have said they will not actually end the holding of the hostages unless Israel completely withdraws from the Gaza Strip, which is not going to happen, and also releases, among others, Marwan Barghouti, who is a terrorist leader extraordinary. He's been held in Israeli prison for decades for a wide variety of murders and terrorist attacks. The reason they want to let him out is because he's a political leader of Fatah, which is the military wing of the Palestinian Authority. And what they're really attempting to do is demonstrate that their assault on October 7th is able to blackmail the Israelis so strongly that they'll even let massive terrorists out of prison. Even terrorists who are basically going to take over the supposedly moderate Palestinian Authority. Now, you don't have to understand or really know any of this. What you do have to understand is that the Biden administration will do whatever it takes to sell Israel down the river on this one in order to achieve some sort of temporary ceasefire just to get them through to the DNC. That is what they are doing right now. And so they are pursuing a multi-pronged plan. One is, apparently, this is the most shocking report, and if this report is true, again, the report first originated from a Fox News article citing a report in the Kuwaiti newspaper Al Jazeera. The White House is now attempting to deny it. Okay, this needs to be investigated because this allegation is extraordinary. There was a report from the Kuwaiti newspaper Al Jazeera suggesting that the United States provided the names of Mossad agents to the Iranians who participated in the Ismail Haniyeh killing in Tehran. Ismail Haniyeh was the political head of Hamas. He was killed by a bomb in Tehran. If the United States government was passing full-on names of Israeli intelligence agents to the Iranians, that is one of the worst stories I've ever heard. I mean, certainly just in terms of how to treat an allied power, that is insane. That is nuts. At least right now, the U.S. National Security Council is denying those reports that a high-ranking American security delegation mediated by Oman secretly traveled to Tehran to share information in an effort to appease Iran. They said it's categorically false. Fox News had reported the delegation allegedly sought to deliver messages to Tehran in order to de-escalate the tensions in the region between Iran and Israel. According to that report, the delegation was sent to convey to Iran Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei that the Biden-Harris administration was, quote, kept in the dark by the Israeli attacks of Hamas's Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah's Fuad Shukr. So apparently, again, those allegations have been denied by the Biden administration, but they've denied allegations before. It deserves more questions asked. Simultaneously, the Biden administration, while acknowledging that the Israelis are participating in the talks, is trying to ratchet up pressure on the Israelis by saying just untrue nonsense. So they leaked to the New York Times. It's like their top headline today. In Gaza, Israel's military has reached the end of the line, U.S. officials say. Now, why don't I believe them? Why don't I believe them? Well, because they said that Israel had reached the end of the military line before they killed Ismail Haniyeh and Fuad Shukr and Mohammed Daif. They suggested that Israel had reached the end of what it could do militarily before Israel conquered Rafah with minimal civilian casualties. So I don't believe you. I think that you are lying, and I think that you're going to the New York Times to lie in an attempt to pressure the Israelis into some sort of ridiculous deal that allows Hamas to survive as a governing power in the Gaza Strip simply to appease your pro-Hamas base. That's what you are doing right now. We can see it. I mean, that is, in fact, what is happening. Meanwhile, in an attempt to tamp down as much of this as possible, Columbia University President Minouche Shafik has resigned. So she, of course, was embattled over at Columbia University because she made room for radically anti-Semitic protests on her campus that took over the center of campus for months at a time. Those protests are likely to begin anew during the new term. She presumably did not want to be at the head of that. And also, I have a feeling that the Democratic Party in New York probably went to her and they were like, guys, you know, she's kind of become the face of this thing. It would be good if she went away. So understand, this is a simmering wound for Democrats. The continuation of the pro-Hamas bloc of the Democratic Party is an unavoidable problem, and it is, in fact, a festering wound in the body politic. Shafik did resign Wednesday as Columbia University's president. She had seen tenuous support from the faculty. The person who will replace her is Katrina Armstrong, who currently runs the Columbia University Irving Medical Center and is dean of the university's medical school. Okay, so this is not going to go away. It's not going to go away. And because it turns out that Hamas is a terrorist group, it turns out that Iran is continuing to support terrorism. And no matter how many times the Biden administration yells at the Israelis, they're not going to acquiesce in their own destruction. So good luck to Kamala Harris next week. I have a feeling there are going to be some ugly headlines that emerge from that particular DNC. All right, guys, coming up, we'll be getting into some breaking news regarding who actually bombed that Nord Stream 2 pipeline. You remember that? If you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging
I
there.
want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
White.
Folks,
White.
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
Say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.